Okay, let's talk about service. I mean, you experience it everywhere, every day, right? Getting coffee, ordering something online. But think about when it goes beyond just efficient, when it actually feels good.
Yeah.
There's a huge difference, isn't there, between just serving someone and offering real, genuine hospitality. Today, we're going to really dig into the thinking of someone who mastered this, Danny Meyer. You know, the guy behind Union Square Hospitality Group, those amazing restaurants, and of course, the global Shake Shack chain. We're looking at his book, Setting the Table. And it's way more than just a business book. It really lays out his whole philosophy of enlightened hospitality.
Exactly. And what's fascinating about enlightened hospitality is how it just completely flips the usual way of thinking about business. Normally, it's all about the investors first, right?
Yeah.
But Meyer puts people first,
Yeah.
especially the employees. The goal is to build these really strong emotional connections with everyone, guests, community, suppliers, and investors. It's very human.
It really is. So our mission here today is to unpack these core ideas, drawing from a critical look at the book. We're going to pull out the key insights, maybe some surprising bits, and also, touch on the parts that maybe need a second look or aren't quite so simple in practice. Get ready to see how one of America's most respected restaurant groups got built, and hopefully find some lessons you can use, whatever you do. So let's start with the book itself, Setting the Table. It's not your typical dry business manual, which is great. It's actually this really interesting mix, part memoir, tracking his own story starting Union Square Cafe when he was just 27.
Yeah, his personal journey is woven right in.
Right. And then it's part practical guide with actual frameworks you could use, and part, I guess, manifesto, really pushing this idea of focusing on people and feelings, not just the transaction.
hmm And central to that is his concept of enlightened hospitality. And that comes with this really unconventional hierarchy he sets up. Like we said, most companies, they put the investors right at the top. Shareholder value, that's the focus. Meyer just turns that completely on its head.
Yeah, this is where it gets really interesting, I think, for anyone running anything. Meyer's priority list starts with employees, number one. Then comes guests. After that, the community, then suppliers, and only then, right at the bottom, investors.
Yeah.
His whole mantra is basically take care of your team and they'll take care of your guests. The idea being that profit comes from loyalty. It's an outcome, not the starting point.
It's a powerful idea, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it fundamentally assumes that, the long-term success of the business lines up perfectly with looking after your staff and making guests feel good emotionally.
Yeah.
And you can see how that works incredibly well in, say, fine dining or these high-touch boutique places.
Definitely.
But it does make you ask, right? Is that hierarchy maybe a bit risky or even idealistic when you get into high-volume, low-margin places like fast casual chains where the whole economic model is different?
That's a really sharp question. How does it scale? How does it translate? Okay, so building on that focus on people, he makes this absolutely critical distinction. Service versus hospitality. He says service is the technical part, getting the food out hot, on time, the mechanics of the delivery.
The execution.
Exactly. But hospitality, that's purely about how the whole interaction makes the guest feel. It's the emotional layer on top of the technical stuff.
He has that great line, hospitality exists when you believe the other person is on your side. And that distinction is just huge because it really puts the spotlight on emotional intelligence, on empathy stuff that often gets sidelined when companies are just focused on standard operating procedures,
Yeah.
It's about building actual trust.
Yeah, that feeling of partnership. It resonates. But, okay, playing devil's advocate here. If you invest so much in cultivating that emotional performance from staff, isn't there a risk of creating serious emotional labor? That feeling of having to be on all the time. And couldn't that lead to burnout or just inconsistency, especially if you've got a big team or like a franchise model where control is looser?
That's a very valid concern.
Yeah.
It kind of leads us into another one of his big ideas, his leadership style, which he calls constant gentle pressure, or CGP. He describes it as this steady, ongoing stream of feedback, coaching, always pushing for improvement, but doing it gently, collaboratively. Not like some authoritarian boss. It sounds, pretty great for developing people.
It does sound great on paper, yeah. Constant
Right.
gentle pressure. But what needs to be true for that to actually work? I mean, my gut feeling is that CGP really only works if the leader is genuinely present, physically and emotionally there. They need to be respected. They need to be communicating constantly. It just doesn't seem like something that scales easily if you've got absentee owners or really high staff turnover where you can't build that consistent relationship and feedback loop. You need that leader really invested.
That's a fair critique. And related to keeping standards high, another really interesting angle is his take on mistake recovery as branding. He basically argues that mistakes aren't failures to be hidden. They're actually prime opportunities to build even stronger loyalty. How you handle it when things go wrong can make a guest feel more valued than if everything just went perfectly.
Yeah, he even says something like, mistakes are welcome because they give you the chance to show who you really are, which logically often feels true, right? We remember how problems get solved.
Hmm.
But does that approach risk maybe empowering guests who are being unreasonable? Or does it make it hard for staff to draw lines if they feel like every complaint needs this heroic recovery effort, even if it's not quite legitimate? Where's the balance?
That's the tightrope walk, isn't it? And finding staff who can walk it brings us to another cornerstone, hiring 51 percenters. Meyer's philosophy is to hire people who are 51% emotional intelligence, the hospitality stuff, and only 49% technical skill.
51-49.
Yeah. He believes those core emotional traits, attitude, kindness, curiosity, work ethic, empathy, self-awareness, those things you just can't really teach. You sort of have them or you don't. The technical skills, he argues, are easier to train.
Okay, so focusing on that innate EQ, it's appealing. You can see why. But what does that imply for, like, developing your team? Does it kind of suggest a fixed mindset? Like, if you're mainly hiring for stuff you think can't be taught, does that downplay the power of really good training, strong culture, and effective management in shaping how everyone behaves over the long term? Maybe great staff aren't just born, they're also made through good systems.
Those are really important questions for any organization. So let's kind of sum up the definite strengths of setting the table. Well, first, it absolutely makes the case for emotional intelligence being a real competitive advantage, especially when products or prices are similar. And the book itself is incredibly open, very transparent. He shares failures alongside successes, which is refreshing and genuinely useful.
Totally agree. And it feels applicable way beyond just restaurants, right? Any role that deals with clients or guests can pull something from this. Plus, it does give you these clear concepts, CGP, 51 percenters, mistake recovery. They feel like things you could actually try to implement, even if your business isn't fine dining.
True. But then, looking at the limitations, the potential blind spots, this whole hospitality first thing, it just isn't always easily scalable. You can imagine larger organizations trying to roll this out and hitting, well, system fatigue. The sheer emotional energy required from everyone might just not be sustainable across a huge workforce. Does it become performative then, rather than genuine?
Yeah. Does it lead to burnout instead of real hospitality? And that employee first idea, well, it sounds amazing. You have to wonder. Without really strict financial discipline alongside it, could it accidentally lead to a sense of entitlement or maybe just inefficiency creeping in?
It's a risk. And another thing is, so much of this seems tied to Danny Meyer himself, his personality, his charisma, his presence.
Yeah.
That kind of leadership isn't easily bottled or replicated by just anyone stepping into the role.
Mm-hmm.
And the book, while it's rich philosophically, it is a bit light on the hard operational details,
Yeah.
cost control, inventory management, waste reduction. The really practical systems aren't laid out in depth.
Right. It's more why than how on some of the operational nuts and bolts. So what does this all mean for you, the listener? Well, sure, it's positioned as a hospitality guide, but you could absolutely read Setting the Table as a fantastic leadership development book. It shows how values-driven companies really thrive when the leader lives those values day in, day out. Or you could see it as a powerful branding manual teaching you how to build a reputation based on trust, genuine emotion, and consistent positive experiences.
Definitely. So the final verdict, does it hold up? I'd say for smaller premium places, boutique restaurants, high-end food and beverage, absolutely. It offers a serious competitive edge built on that reputation and guest loyalty. For the big chains, fast casual kiosks, it's more limited. You need to adapt it heavily, build in really robust systems, strong financial controls, scalable HR policies. It's not a plug-and-play solution there.
But what about other service industries?
Oh, incredibly relevant. Think hotels, healthcare, customer support, retail. Any field where that emotional component of service often gets overlooked. The principles are really powerful there.
So, wrapping up this deep dive into Danny Meyer's enlightened hospitality, it's pretty clear setting the table isn't just about food. It's fundamentally about leading with empathy, building real trust, and creating experiences that genuinely connect with people and stay with them.
Yeah, absolutely. But, as we've discussed, those powerful lessons need to be grounded in reality. You need that cost awareness, the operational discipline, the scalable systems, especially if you're trying to apply them outside Meyer's specific kind of premium world.
So maybe this leaves us with a thought to chew on. If real hospitality means making someone feel like you are truly on their side, How can you actively cultivate that specific feeling, that sense of partnership and empathy in your own interactions, whether it's at work or just in daily life, regardless of your industry? Think about that, and maybe you can start setting your own table for success.